Here's a fun tip for you kids in academia. Always start essays with an opening thesis, preferably in the form of an inquiry. After that, you can waffle uselessly away to your heart's content. So let's get the formalities out of the way. Viewer, is it possible for storytelling to be too nuanced? Not too long ago on the Windbreakers podcast, we were talking about our favourite video game villains and what we like about them. And there's a tendency when you bring up this topic to say that the best villains are the complex ones, where you can see their point of view, who probably don't see themselves as villains and have rational decision-making behind their actions. Well, fuck that, frankly. The more I think about it, the more I find I prefer my villains to be as irrational as possible. My favourite villains are 100% aware of the fact that they are the villain and absolutely do not give a shit. You know, like Raul Julia in the Street Fighter movie, or any villain played by Jason Isaacs or Willem Dafoe, when you can tell from their performance that they're enjoying themselves immensely. This is how a villain becomes a truly memorable character for me. Oh sure, sometimes a villain can grab you just by being well-spoken, like GLaDOS or Andrew Ryan, but why put in the effort when you can get the same result by going to town on the scenery? My cited example in the podcast was Pius Augustus from Eternal Darkness, who starts off as humdrum dutiful Roman soldier man, but then gets turned into a skeleton wizard and proceeds to spend the next 2,000 years doing heinous shit while clearly having the time of his fucking life. Talk about operatic. Every scene he's in, I feel he could break into song at any moment. Other examples would be Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I mean, I wouldn't vote for the guy, but I definitely subscribe to his fucking podcast. Even Bowser has this undeniable charisma about him. I mean, all clown-copter aerial assaults aside, at heart he's a people's revolutionary, attempting to create social mobility, who was the poster boy for being an involved dad way before Bluey was a thing. I suppose a memorable villain is all the more important in video game storytelling, where the necessity of player projection means protagonists tend towards blank slateism. In Portal 1, GLaDOS is arguably the only actual character. And then there's the Batman Arkham series, in which Batman spends all his screen time stomping humorlessly around, being unimpressed by things, so all the villains have to completely ham it up to meet him halfway. Or should I say, arc-ham it up. My toddler thinks I'm funny. But as we were discussing this in the podcast, it occurred to us that all our examples of memorable villainy were from comparatively old games. Senator Armstrong's probably the most recent example cited above, and that was over 10 years ago now. Frost dug up some listicle on the best villains in gaming. It was full of the usual suspects: Bowser, Robotnik, GLaDOS. The most recent character on it was Vaz from Far Cry 3. So I went to the list of games I've reviewed, resolving to find the last game I'd played with a noteworthy villain. And as my scrolling wore on, I grew more and more concerned. Look, complex and nuanced storytelling is a wonderful thing, but I worry in the pursuit of flexing our writing chops, we risk missing the forest for the trees. And it kind of worried me how few games in recent years achieve one of the most fundamental baselines of emotional narrative, that we like the hero and hate the villain. I mean, to look at a couple of recent examples, in Stellar Blade, the protagonist is a shop window mannequin with a posh accent. There isn't a clear villain until the very end, spoiler alert, and they deliver their pre-final boss dialogue like an overloaded mailbox spilling circulars for tree pruning services. And it turns out they've got relatable motives, and there's even an option to side with them. Again, complexity in writing is no bad thing, but if there's one game that could get away with having a little more over-the-top fun with its characters, it's one about doing triple somersault sword slashes with your bum hanging out. A lot of the games on my recent reviews list just flat out don't have a characterized villain at all, and if there's any kind of antagonistic force, it's some kind of abstract concept or incomprehensible entity. Pacific Drive, Alan Wake 2, American Arcadia, Talos Principle 2. The only antagonist in that last example is not having finished all the puzzles. I can identify 3 games since Fully Ramblomatic began that have uncomplicatedly hateable operatic villains, and they're all based on pre-existing IP: Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, Robocop Rogue City, and Suicide Squad. If you want the last original video game IP with fun villains on my review list, you'll probably have to go all the way back to Hi-Fi Rush and ask Microsoft how much that mattered. Going back to Suicide Squad, the lack of compelling villainy can be very easily tied to the live service model, because an essential part of the fun villain experience is getting to give them their comeuppance. And the enemy in a live service can never be defeated once and for all, because then the infinite gameplay would be over. I mean, Brainiac in Suicide Squad certainly is operatic and hateable, but the format demands they're never going to be properly defeated, even if the game weren't inevitably doomed to get shut down before all the intended story DLCs, where their final defeat might presumably have happened. But I'd only portion part of the blame on the trend for live services when I think the trend for Souls-likes deserves some of it too. You can't have a dramatic roof rooftop sword fight in the rain with the concept of entropy, and that's the closest thing to the villain of Dark Souls. All the dudes you actually fight are hollow shells of once powerful beings after they've already given up. Most of Dark Souls' imitators follow a similar pattern. There's one boss fight in Bloodborne against a dude with a cage on his head who giggles and runs away from you a lot, and I think it's the one case of a boss fight in any From Software game who seems to be enjoying themselves. But it's not just video games, is it? I'm thinking of that The Batman film with Robert Pattinson, which was going for an arse-achingly realistic, grounded in reality take on Batman. I admit I haven't seen it, but I find it hard to believe that any movie about a bloke who dresses up to fight crime could ever possibly be grounded in reality, if it doesn't feature him being immediately sectioned under the Mental Health Act. But the point is, it has this whole take on the Riddler as a creepy incel Zodiac killer weirdo. And I guess, yeah, that's probably what a real-life Riddler would be like. But I look at that, and then I look at the Riddler in the Arkham games, where he's flamboyant and larger than life, and builds entire underground racetracks in a totally unrealistic and not the least bit grounded in reality kind of way, and I have to wonder, what value does realism really have in entertainment media? Don't answer that if you're a graphics card manufacturer. So what are you whining about now, Yards? That villains in video games and pop culture are being portrayed with greater nuance and complexity? So what? We live in a nuanced and complex world. I agree. I do think there might be something societal reflected in this trend. Maybe with the world being in the state it's in, the prevailing wind in culture is to go, hey, everything's gone to shit, but it's not like there's some convenient, lone, sneering figure making it that way. We're all victims of broad societal shifts that none of us can do anything about, so we might as well accept we're all in it together and stop trying to point fingers. And a conspiratorially minded person might wonder if that's a message being pushed to stop us from looking up a few ivory towers at those motherfuckers in the C-suite, shutting down perfectly healthy studios for the sake of a fatter bottom line. Sorry, I didn't mean to end up sounding like a paranoid weirdo, one bad weekend away from beating my CEO to death in a car park. Let me get back on topic. I want more games to have characters I actually hate so I can enjoy beating them to death. Oh, wait, shit.